Hello everyone, this is HuskyStarcraft here, back with some more Starcraft 2! Do I even have to say Heart of the Swarm action on it anymore? I don't know, but it is indeed Heart of the Swarm, spawning down the bottom right side. It is going to be Liquid TLO. You guys are all familiar with him, but I definitely want to make my rounds through my favorite players and cast their games in Heart of the Swarm, because of course this is the official release of Heart of the Swarm. Everything else didn't matter because now the actual game is out. Down the bottom left side, it is going to be Instinct. Now my voice is a little groggy, a little crackly, because I think I was trying to do the math, I was at the Blizzard launch event for 26 hours, then I played through the entire campaign, which is a little bit over 10 hours, and then I did MLG, which I'm trying to remember how many hours that was. So I've made several hundred hours of content, I feel like, this month for StarCraft 2, so my voice is a little tired. Hopefully you guys can bear with it a tiny bit and have a little bit of understanding, and if not, that's okay, because I'm going to keep making videos anyways. But anyways, it is going to be a PvZ. And let me actually make sure something really quickly here. We can turn on the sound, I think, just one little hair. Want to make sure that's not too overwhelming, because it's always kind of hard to balance the audio, because when I play and when I cast, it has to be different settings. But that's just kind of how it goes. But the map is going to be Newkirk City. We've seen lots of epic games on this map. Epic games, that's the word I'm looking for. TvZ on this map tends to be a little bit ridiculous. We'll see if PvZ ends up being the same way. But again, guys, if you have not picked up Heart of the Swarm, I know I've said a lot already, but overall, universally, I would say that the game is highly praised. The single player is pretty good. It's about 10 hours to beat if you played it as quickly as I did, although I did do all the dialogue and stuff, so it wasn't like I was speeding through. But I do believe that my playlist was about 10 hours long, so if you like single player, you can weigh if you think the game's worth it or not. I would say, though, all the multiplayer units definitely make it worth it. The new BattleNet definitely makes it worth it, and I think there's going to be a lot of awesome tournaments coming up in the near future, so we'll just have to wait and see when all the dust settles, how well the game is received, and yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. I personally really like it. The game is much harder to play. I will definitely say that, much more difficult to play, just because there's a lot of units that require multitasking, but that's really only in 1v1. In team games, it's still a bunch of shenanigans, a bunch of fun, and honestly, when I first started playing StarCraft, I learned to play in team games, and yeah, I still play team games most of the time. I think I played 6 or 7 of them. There's Unranked Ladder, which is freaking sweet. But regardless, let's go ahead and get back into this game. We do have the Forge going to be going down for Instinct right now. And he is going to be doing the Forge Fast Expand. Can't say that blame him. It's very easy to wall in on this map. We do have the Double Expand here from TLO. Kicking it up old school right now. Now the main thing he's going to have to watch out for is any sort of airplay, which is definitely a possibility right now, as a Stargate follow-up from this could be devastating if TLO is not prepared for it. Because you got to remember that Stargate openers now, they do have 3 viable options. You can go for the Oracle for harassing the mineral line. Not as good versus Zerg because they will have queens out in time. You can go for Void Rays, which are very good versus armored units now. Can counter a lot of those roach pushes and deal with spore crawlers and buildings because they do additional damage versus armored with the prismatic alignment. Or you can actually go Phoenix versus Zerg, because the Phoenix are slightly better than they used to be in Wings of Liberty. They got that slight range buff and are just very, very good. We saw MC use it to great effect versus Terran players using those Phoenix. I think we're going to start seeing a lot more Sky Toss, just because, again, all the new units they added for Protoss, every single one is a flying unit. So it'd be kind of silly if Protoss players didn't at least experiment around a little bit with that. Now the Queen is going to go down onto the low ground here at the 3rd base, as actually, no, one thing TLO loves to do is send out an Overlord with a Queen and start creep spread in the center of the map. Looks like this one, though, is going to be for that 3rd base. Should be ready to puke all over that hatchery like a good Queen. Now, he's even going to put it on the... Oh, is he going to do a creep tumor? Yes, he is going to do a creep tumor. All right, so he decides not to go for the early inject larva on the 3rd hatchery. I'm guessing the idea behind this is, I mean, he can't really afford to produce off... Oh, my God, how many queens is he actually making right now? I think he's got 3 out already with 2 more on the way. So TLO's saying, you know what, he is walled in. That probably means a Stargate opener. That probably means no gateways going to be producing units anytime soon. So actually going a lot of queens here might be a good idea. I think TLO is really going to be focusing on creep spread this game, as well as anti-air. We do actually have a Stargate on the way, so this is a great read by TLO. He does have an Overlord in a pretty good spot to be able to potentially spot any of those air units. The Stalker here is trying to take it out, just barely out of vision range. Oh, well, actually... How does that start? I feel like this vision is weird, but apparently does not see the Overlord right there. Yeah, you can see the little circle right here. It's just barely out of range. But he knows there's an Overlord there. He probably knows there's one over here as well. Yeah, he can actually see the one over here. So might send the Stalker over there just to go ahead and deal with that. push it back a tiny bit. It is going to be Phoenix here from Instinct, and if you're watching this going, well, that's not very good, that is a lie. Phoenix are very, very good right now, and can be mixed in with the Skytoss army later, especially if you retain those Phoenix. They can be good in the late game because they absorb shots from those Corruptors, allowing you to go for Void Rays, allowing you to go for Colossus. Void Rays are really good versus Corruptors in general right now as well, so definitely something to keep in mind if you're a Protoss. Now, speaking of which, TLO right now going for a lot of drones here and going for the pneumatized carapace. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly, probably not, but anyways, that means that he's getting Overlord speed. He's a little bit worried about those Phoenix we were talking about just a moment ago, and Phoenix are very fast. They have a nice little range of 5, and they do extra damage versus light units. The creep starter for TLO actually starting to really kick in here as he does at the 8-minute mark, about reaching the middle of the map. Very impressive there. We do have a Zerg going to be scouting around and actually not spot that probe. I gotta say, this is a great read by TLO to scout for the probe, but look at that hiding spot over here, narrowly avoiding it. And a lot of people don't know what these are about. They're relatively new. These are the cooling towers, also known as collapsible rocks in tower form, but these only have 500 HP, and they will collapse to lock down certain areas of the map. Kind of cool stuff. I always like those mechanics. Here comes the Phoenix right now. I think TLO, though, is already prepared for this. Look at this. He's got a creep tumor on the high ground to be able to connect these two bases. Might end up losing a queen right here, but he is allowed to do this at this point. As long as he keeps his queens together, he's not going to end up losing that many. Also going to be losing a couple of drones right now. Spore Callers are on the way. I can't help but feel, though, like TLO is actually going to be fine here, because you got to remember that with Phoenix, you have to do so much damage that it's actually absurd, because the Zerg player is already on 3 bases. He is already going to be maxed out like a champ if you allow him to get as many roaches as he might like. And so right now it looks like TLO going to be poking up the ramp here, see what's going on. I don't think he's going to be able to break this, but might be able to take out the cannon and put on a little bit of pressure. Could take out the Forge as well. And we actually have shield upgrades on the way for Instinct first. A very interesting choice. Normally you're going to be seeing the armor upgrade for Zealots or the attack upgrade for Stalkers, but I think he's going for the shield upgrade since he has air units. That is the one upgrade that both ground and air units will benefit from. I love how these 2 roaches actually snuck in here. We'll be able to kill off a couple of probes, and down goes the Cybercore, trying to warp in Zealots here to prevent these units from running by any further. But the Roach is actually doing quite a bit of damage at the expansion right here. A really good timing here from TLO. We'll take a look at the units lost overall. It looks like TLO is behind in that regard. Was able to even out the amount of workers killed off, though. So a nice defense there by Instinct. He does have Void Rays on the way to help defend against anything like that again. Because remember, with Prismatic Alignment, realigns the Void Rays Prismatic Beam to gain +6 damage versus armored units for 20 seconds. That may not sound that great, but remember that a Void Ray attacks. So what is the rate that a Void Ray attacks at, actually? It is 0.5, so it doesn't attack. I mean, it's a beam that's constantly doing damage, but it's every 0.5 seconds. So in 1 second, you do 12 additional damage. I know I'm a math genius, but basically what that means is that armored units do not stand a chance versus Void Rays. Keep in mind that Overlords and Roaches both count as armored, so TLO is going to have to be very careful here with the fact that he's getting so many armored units out. But look at his creep spread. If you're wondering how he did this without connecting it, what he's doing is roaming around with an Overlord and planting down creep tumors, and this is something that is amazing to watch. I think TLO is definitely onto something here. This is a great idea. I think we're going to see more and more players do this. There's really no reason not to that I can think of, as long as you don't lose the Queen or the Overlord. But losing the Overlord, I guess, isn't that big of a deal. Here comes the Roaches right here, and one thing that a lot of Zerg players have been struggling with is Skytoss, which is exactly what Instinct is going for, so we'll see exactly how much damage he can do here. He's going to run into the main base, kills off the cannon, which will open up for more counterattacks later. 1 photon cannon going down in the mineral line as TLO has managed to slip his way in here. Nice Phoenix usage here, going to be picking those up, but that means the Roaches are just basically inside the main base, doing lots of damage, maybe able to delay that Colossus tech even further. I almost feel like killing off the units as much as possible might be a better choice, but going to go for that, and will be able to get it. The more you can delay Colossus, the better. Oh my god, he's going to kill it off, right? Okay, there it goes. But I got to say, TLO losing a lot in that engagement, almost everything. However, the fact that he's keeping Instinct in his base for so long means that he can secure a 4th base now before Instinct is able to secure his own 3rd. So that's going to be something that, you know, TLO will be spending more money because he's mining more money, which means he can sacrifice those units much more often. But Instinct doing what he needs to, retaining the important units. He did lose a couple workers there, though. I think about losing about 7 more in that engagement, so losing 13 at the end of the day. It does look like the Robotics Bay is going to be on the way, but look at this creep spread. It is a little bit silly at this point. He's even spreading it all the way to the north. He's going to be connecting these creep islands, I guess we'll call them. The creep islands over here got to be delaying the 4th base right there, and so that will force Instinct to have to go to this location as well, which is definitely an interesting amount of creep spread. I think that maybe this creep tumor will be the one that gets taken out or the one that comes after it, but TLO doing everything he needs to here. Lots of Hydralisk on the way. He does have the +1 attack on the way, already with the +1 armor. I was going to say he should probably get 2 Evo Chambers at this point. He does have 2, but has not quite been able to afford producing extra upgrades just yet. But seriously, TLO's using map hacks at this point. He has so many creep tumors on the map. Does it show you creep tumors in the structures tab? I can't remember if it does. Yes, 54 creep tumors is how many he has right now, and I have a feeling he's just getting started on that. And look, even building more right there. And thank you to Blizzard for adding creep tumors into the unit counting station, just so I can talk about that, because it is absolutely silly. Now, one thing that Zerg players are really struggling with is Protoss on 3 to 4 bases getting maxed out with air and ground units. There's the Photon Overcharge. May have been a little bit premature, but at the same time, he has had the Mothership Core for a little bit, so wants to get rid of some of that energy. Might be able to kill off the Nexus right here. The Prismatic alignment on the Void Rays, I don't think it's going to be helping out that much anymore, because there's really only Hydralisk remaining. Trying to focus down the Nexus right now. Will he be able to get it? It looks like the answer is yes. Although will pay the price with a couple of Hydralisk kills right there. The Hydralisk is going to be swinging around right now. The Zerg is swooping around as well. But the Colossus really being the saving grace here for Instinct's army. Going to be scaring this army away. That Infestor went for the ride of his life, but the Phoenix did get taken out there. So really, kind of curious to see how that shaped up. Looks like TLO did have a favorable engagement there, but with the 3rd base on the way for Instinct, he's not going to be able to move out anytime soon. If he does try and move out, the vastly superior army of TLO, taking a look at the army supply right now, 89 to 71, that is only going to grow, as now it is 91. He does have Lings on the way, an Ultralisk Cavern, a Spire. He's got every upgrade in the book, actually working on all 3 upgrades, so that means he has 3 Evo Chambers right there, which is actually pretty sexy here, a macro style of TLO, always fun to watch. And this is only on 4 bases. You would have expected a 5th base by now, which is what he's going to go ahead and do, throwing down a 5th base here. So I guess the Mothership Core died in the midst of that, as we do have it on the way. Now remember, to upgrade the Mothership Core into a Mothership, just a whole Mothership, you do still need the Fleet Beacon. So we don't see those nearly as much, but the Time Warp is an amazing ability versus Zerg. It slows all those Hydras from being able to escape. Mass Recall is quite nice to save them, but Photon Overcharge is probably what we're going to be seeing the most of. Although I will say Photon Overcharge not nearly as good, I would say, versus Zerg as it is versus Terran, because it does help with drops versus Terran, but you don't normally see drops versus Zerg. You do see lots of counterattacks and all that, but I do want to talk about Skytoss versus Zerg a little bit. If you look at the forums, if you look at a lot of the pro players and anyone who's playing at any level, a Protoss who sits back and gets their death ball going is, I think, what Zerg are struggling with the most, which is what it used to be like back in Wings of Liberty until Zerg players finally figured it out. So what we're seeing is a lot of Zerg players attempting different unit compositions. We saw early Roach timings here from TLO. Now we're starting to see Zerg Hydra, and now we're also starting to see a transition into Ultra. And if you're wondering, well, what's the point of Ultralisks versus air units? You got to remember that if the Ultralisk can kill everything on the ground, if you're able to get enough ground units, then the air units aren't nearly as terrifying, especially if they haven't had time to get maxed out on just air units. So that's going to be TLO trying out a good unit composition. And I do want to say that this game is at the Grandmaster level on the European server. TLO is almost #1, actually, on the European ladder right now for Grandmaster. So that is something that is definitely worth keeping in mind, as TLO has been playing a lot of games. I think a couple hundred games already, and the game's only been out for a couple of days. I guess maybe like a week at this point. But, yeah. That's pretty awesome. Always cheering on for TLO, but Instinct is also a Grandmaster level player, so anything can happen here. Especially, honestly, I think he's playing this out correctly. We do see the Zerglings here ready for the counterattack or the surround, as TLO has been very patient here, waiting for his upgrades, waiting for his maxed out army, waiting for his correct unit composition. And also, look at that creep spread. It is literally map hacks at this point. He can see everything except for the army itself. Here comes a couple of Lings right there, but again, the Colossus. There's just enough Colossus to be effective here. He's rocking 5 right now. That's going to be killing all those ground units. You can see the Ultras here trying to kill off those Zealots, and TLO showing a great amount of patience here. Actually, Zerg players, you can definitely learn from this. Oh, sniped another Mothership Core there. You can definitely learn from the patience you are watching right now, because what a lot of Zerg players do is they get impatient, they run in there, they lose their army, and they rage quit. That's not what you need to do here, though. One Ultralisk up there going to be counterattacking, trying to do everything he can to delay those expansions. More upgrades are on the way, and what I think we're going to see here is TLO do as much damage to the air units as he can. Should probably kill off the Phoenix if possible. Throw out the Fungals there for those sentries right there, which is exactly what he's doing. and just slowly whittling away down this army is what you have to do, or try and get the Protoss army out of position and counterattack into the main, whether it's going to be Night of Swarms, whether it's going to be Zergling run-bys. We're just going to have to wait and see if TLO opts to do that. We do have more Evo chambers now, which shows that, hey, there are Vipers on the way. Remember, again, I say this a lot, but I want to make sure it's very clear. You do not need a Spire to make Vipers. You only need Hive Tech, so just remember that. Just remember that, Zerg players. I know it's so tempting to throw down a Spire, although TLO threw down a Spire so we could get out the Corruptors. You do still need a Spire for Corruptors. That's something that did not change. And again, Zerg players really struggling versus this Protoss unit composition, because think about the Corruptors. They take additional damage from the Void Rays, and they don't do additional damage to the Void Rays. So the Void Rays definitely have a distinct advantage there. And if you try and focus down the Colossus with the Corruptors, then you're not going to be able to deal with the area. And so it's kind of a dicey situation where Zerg doesn't necessarily have a clear answer in dealing with it. All those creep spread is literally knocking on the front door. It is going to be spreading on this pylon here pretty soon. I love how they added a graphic for when creep is touching opposing players' buildings. Looks kind of cool. Not sure if we're going to see that, though, just because there is enough units here backed into a corner to be able to prevent the creep spread from actually touching that part of the map. But really, if there was a % of map shown by TLO, it would be ridiculous, because he can see basically everything. So there's really no way for our Protoss player to move out. TLO's even spreading creep up this ramp over here. So really the only thing our Protoss player can do, he's got one of two options: get a maxed out army, which is what he's opting for, or try and do some sort of harassment in the main with a Warp Prism or something like that. Looks like TLO is going to go for it here, though. The Corruptor's waiting for the Sky units to swing around to the right side. Not able to do all that much. Here's the Changelings. They do get cleaned up easily. You're not fooling anybody, TLO. But he is able to use it just to absorb some shots as well as see what's going on. There's Blinding Cloud. Going to be able to yoink over one of the Tempest. There's really no other word than yoink to describe that ability there, as he is using Abduct to bring over the Colossus as well. Going to be able to focus those down. And TLO once again showing much patience. We'll probably back out here in just a second. But even though he's not being very cost-effective in these engagements, he's able to take out those high-tier units, those costly units, and able to continually expand around the map. I mean, let's take a look at the income tab right now. As, whoa, accidentally sped that up just a tiny bit, but the income right now is 1700, and our Protoss player has finally secured a 4th base right now. So TLO's in pretty good shape. He's actually got a very low drone count, which I think is something that is very important right here, in that the low drone count is going to help him have a much larger army, which is what he needs to help deal with the Protoss death ball that we're seeing. Again, this reminds me kind of, oh, look at that one little sneaky creep tumor there, just to delay this even more. I can only imagine how long it's going to take for all this creep to recede, because that was a lot of creep tumors. We do see the Overseer is going to be moving out with the Corruptors here. He doesn't know, is there going to be a Mothership Core here or not? And having lots of Overseers is always kind of nice. Of course, they're very fast moving. They can use the Contaminate, which makes it, makes it be able to delay any production of units. We're probably not going to be seeing that. What's more important, I would say, is the corruption ability on these Corruptors, being able to make those Colossus and Tempest take extra damage. So we'll see if he manages to pull that one out. Oh, that poor probe. That poor probe may have been making more supply, actually, for the observers and all of that. I think he's intentionally doing this to kill these off, because at this point he may have a few too many workers, might be a little bit oversaturated on some of these bases. And actually, no, he's got relatively low working count. He is slightly oversaturated on this base, though, but it does look like right now TLO is going to be using Blinding Cloud right away. You can see that the Changelings here trying to attack, but they can't, because they're just Changelings, as the Blinding Cloud is going to be preventing those cannons from really doing all that much. Remember that Blinding Cloud reduces the range of units down to 1, and he did use it on the Nexus there as well, preventing it from really doing all that much damage. But really, I actually do talk to a lot of lower-ranked Zerg players who struggle versus, a Deathball Protoss, and I definitely think that TLO is showing us the way. Oh, there we go. That poor little swarm host, man. He was on the wrong side of town. He just got lost. He was stopping to ask for directions, but you went to the wrong neighborhood. But anyways, I think that TLO is really showing what you need to do versus Protoss is constantly, well, number one, being patient, and number two, waiting for that army to get slightly out of position, go in there, do a little bit of damage, back out, and consistently do that back and forth. Because even this is technically out of position when you're playing Zerg, so you have to run in, show some patience, abduct a few units. There's that High Templar. He does manage to survive that abduct, though, and then retreat away immediately, because you got to remember that Protoss armies, their whole game plan is burst damage, so they want to burn down your army immediately. But if you never allow them to do that, then that's how you slowly whittle them down. That's exactly what TLO is doing. You may look at this and be like, well, TLO is very low on supply. You got to remember, he's got a lot of expansions, a lot of larva, or he should have a lot of larva. 25 right now. He can easily get remaxed out. So if you're just slowing the push from Protoss, because if this death ball is knocking at your front door, you are going to get eliminated. But right now, this death ball is actually looking a little bit weak right now because he's picking off units here and there, being very patient, retreating when he needs to, and I can imagine he's going to start working on the counterattacks right now. But Instinct hasn't had the chance to move out just yet. I mean, it may look like he can, but you really have to be maxed out, and losing that many units is devastating to Protoss. Even though Zerg is being inefficient here, what TLO is doing is delaying that push. That's exactly what he needs to do, as we do have the Zealots going to be moving out right now to try and clean up these creep tumors here. As the Observer says, yeah, we'll take these out. Apparently 2 random roaches and a Hydralisk, though, are going to be able to clean that up. Upgrades for TLO 3-3. Our Protoss players currently at 1-2-1. He needs more upgrades here, but he can't get enough gas because he lost just a few too many units right here. He is going to continue to clean out these creep tumors. Actually, will spot the space up here, but guess what? TLO being patient once again, waiting for that army to get out of position. He's going to attack this expansion. Notice he's trying to work down the debris to begin attacking the expansion up here, and also be able to kill the expansion, the third base. So if he can kill the third base, oh, DT's over here. If he can kill the third base, that's going to expose the fourth base. Here come the Corruptors now. Got to be able to take out these air units. That poor Colossus getting one shot there. And again, this is what you have to do. Attack, retreat, get him out of position, attack again, and retreat. TLO playing a phenomenal game here, although our Protoss player is still being much more cost-effective in this game overall. So if he can get that death ball at the Zerg player's main base, then he's going to be in good shape, but the Corruptor count is getting so freaking high right now. Nice Storm there, trying to scare those units away. I'm not sure how much damage the Storm did, but it was a very high number, as those units are all now in the yellow. But at this point, I think Instinct's only option is to move out, try to attack, and make something happen here. But if he does that, the counterattack potential for TLO is huge. At this style of play and at this stage of the game, you basically have to go all in as Protoss, because you have to leave your main base undefended. You don't have anything to defend it with, because you need every single unit in the upcoming engagement. But TLO has managed to whittle down this army a substantial amount. He's been able to use the Abduct, Blinding Cloud very well, and TLO is showing us that, number one, a Zerg player can be ranked very highly on the Grandmaster League, I guess. I almost said Grandmaster server. That'd be kind of crazy, a server with only Grandmasters on it. That'd be pretty intense. But it does look like, once again, TLO showing a lot of patience here, going for the expansions as soon as that army moves out. And you can tell Instinct really wants to kill off these outlying expansions so he himself can expand. But the second he moves out, that's when TLO engages. There's the yoink ability of the Vipers. Able to take those out. And remember that using that ability doesn't really cost all that much energy. It's only 75 energy there, which is quite intense. The Ultras over here chasing down the probes. Ultras are so good. 26 kills on that Ultra. 28 when all is said and done. He eventually goes down, but he had the Metamorph rank. Not something you see very often, just because Zerg units are so sacrificial usually. And it does look like the Lings over here are going to try and counterattack. Might be able to get in there. Whoa! Warping that in literally at the last possible second, as those units will get cleaned up here by Instinct. And I gotta say, this is almost beautiful to watch TLO play this, because you can't engage the army directly. You have to pull over a couple units. You have to use the Fungals. You have to use the quick Corruptors. You have to use the Hydras. There's actually a lot going on here for TLO, while Instinct is trying to play it a much more safe Sky Toss style. Yes, he will kill off that Ultra, but unless he gets more harassment going, I do like how he killed this, by the way. Ah, that poor larva. It was nice knowing you. They always explode the second they get off creep there. But it does look like some more Zerglings going to be running through here. But guess what? Warp in right there. Force field got to deny that. And TLO again, as soon as that army moves out of position just a little bit, goes for the air units. And if you're wondering why the Tempest got left behind, it's just because they have such a long attack range that you have to very specifically individually micro them here. Oh man, this is awesome to watch for TLO, being so cautious with his units. One mistake here will cost him the game. Units lost has finally equaled out just a little bit, but it looks like Instinct realizes, I don't have any more income. I've got to go with what I've got, and we'll see if TLO can deal with it. It looks like he will be able to. The Zergling's got to get a nice round. Blinding Cloud making those Colossus not really do anything, and there's the GG from Instinct, as TLO is showing us how to deal with the big old Sky Toss Death Ball. I think that it is definitely one of the strongest unit compositions in the game right now, as players, especially Zerg, are trying to figure out how in the hell do I deal with this. So I think it's a great learning experience for Zerg players out there. You got to have good creep spread. You have to be very patient. You have to pick your battles, retreat often, and do not overcommit to a single attack. It sounds easy, but as we saw here in this game, it is very difficult, because honestly, if TLO would have over-engaged just once, he would have actually ended up losing this game. So great game to TLO. Lots of awesome potential here with Heart of the Swarm. So let's go ahead and cast more games. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time.